2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It has been a little while since I've had this guy in on the Lee Test Your Team hotline. He covers all things Washington so that I don't have to go down there except for a Rolling Stones concert or a random Rob Thomas concert at the Anthem. Dave Preston has been my friend for a number of years from my wife's hometown of Manchester, New Hampshire, although he doesn't have the funny accent like everybody else. My wife doesn't have it either. He's at WTOP. He's covering all things Terrapins. Is it fair to say you got Terps fever, Dave Preston, or is it not?
Oh, it's amazing. I think after they beat Howard 79-0, everyone said, okay, well, that's Howard. And then they took on a number 21 Syracuse team that might not be as good as everybody thought, but still they put 63 points on the board, scored the first 3 times they had the ball, looked great on both sides of the ball, and pretty much they're in the top 25 this week for the first time since they joined the Big Ten. The last time they were in the top 25, they went to Florida State and got rocked. So one hopes for a better effort this time. But it has been one incredible run thus far. Only 2 games into the season. Remember last year they upset Texas, finished with a losing record. The year before they upset Texas, finished with a losing record. So there's a lot of football to be played, but it looks great so far in College Park.
Yeah, the upsetting of Texas thing, it's strange what the quarterback thing has done for them, right? Like, You start to look and you see this kid throwing the football around like a Virginia Tech quarterback, and you're like, well, if they had a healthy, upright quarterback the last 3 years, you could say if Jordan McNair. You can go through all the ifs, but they were not a bad program per se, maybe against the ACC versus the Big Ten, notwithstanding Michigan, Ohio State, even Penn State. But without a quarterback, you can't get anything done. I mean, they had Pickram running around, and they're running 4 different quarterbacks out there a season in the last 3 years. This kid, if he stays upright, I don't know that they're going to beat Penn State 2 weeks from now, but I think it at least injects some enthusiasm into the program that we haven't seen around here in a while.
Again, we're only 2 weeks into the season, so the returns are very early. This is like on presidential election night when, hey, Indiana and the District of Columbia have already, let you know who they're going to vote for. So it's still very early, but I think when you look at Josh Jackson's presence in the pocket, the throws that he makes, just from 2 weeks, he has a chance to be the best quarterback to set foot in this program since, I'm going to say, Sam Hollenbach. Back in 2006, the last guy who, when you looked at a Maryland quarterback, you said, hey, that guy looks and he plays like a D1 quarterback.
By the way, who's the last Maryland quarterback that touched the football at Maryland that threw one pass in the NFL? Because there was a period where there were 6 Maryland. Right? There was Gelbaugh and O'Donnell and Zolak, and you just went through every year. That guy, whoever it was, even when he kind of stunk against Florida State, would at least carry a clipboard than that. Frank Reich, I mean, coaching a team, right? So you have all of the Boomer. I mean, I would go to Boomer, but I'm talking about that at the turn of the century, there were 5 or 6 Maryland quarterbacks in the league. I'm really trying to think of the last Maryland quarterback that threw a pass in the National Football League, and I'm hard-pressed to do so. Fair enough.
Sean Hill, maybe. And the great thing about Sean Hill was that he was a backup for years in the NFL, and I always thought there was a contest between Sean Hill and Steve Blake to see who could last in their respective leagues longer. I want to say Hollenbach maybe got a look. Scott McBride maybe got a look. But as far as actually playing in the regular season, I think Hill's the last guy that we've seen. And I think that Josh Jackson has a chance to be, the best since Hollenbach. You look at how important quarterback play is. You talked about guys getting hurt last year and the year before. Only twice since 2003 has Maryland started the same quarterback in all 13 games of the season. And both of those years, 2006, they went 9-4. And then 2014. They made a bowl with C.J. Brown. So if Maryland is able to keep their quarterback healthy and get the right guy in place where they don't have to make a change mid-season because he's ineffective, this program can have special seasons.
Dave Preston is Dav Presto out on Twitter. You can find him at WTOP.com. Tell me what you do, because you're really into college sports, especially basketball season. You're crazy about that. But I was looking for somebody that's been to the Maryland games the last couple of weeks. From the looks of it, there's only a handful of people over there. Even the Syracuse game is a little orange going on. And I wanted to reach to you because I think this has been a little shocking. And Mike Loxley, I swabbed him for the bone marrow registry back on my Give a Spit tour down in College Park with Bino Ranson and Juan Dixon a couple of years ago. He's back from Alabama, and someone said that there was sort of Jedi training is what they said he went to Alabama for to come back here. There's one thing about him walking the campus and being around the place and being around town and having guys like you and I know who he is and having a good vibe for him, is that was never going to happen for a DJ Durkin, for an outsider, that maybe this is an inside job, and maybe this was the best thing the program could do at this point is bring him back.
And when you look at the people who have been in charge of the program, of the department, of the university over the last maybe 10 years, when they brought in Kevin Anderson, you had somebody from outside the culture who didn't understand how important the ACC was. So, from a dollars and cents standpoint, it made sense to go to the Big Ten. You had a Randy Edsall, a DJ Durkin, guys who, even though Edsall said that this was his dream job, he was a guy who had made his bones in the Big East and had played for a school in the Big East. And it really does take a special person to maximize this program. Somebody who has roots in the DMV. He attended games, Mike Loxley did it at Byrd Stadium way back when it was Byrd Stadium back in the 80s. He played at Towson. He had been an assistant here under several different regimes. So he knows what it takes to win at this level. And just as important, he knows what it takes to keep the local players here. He has great relationships with the high school coaches in the area, and that is step one to building a program. And that was step one, is where things kind of went wrong under previous regimes. So again, it's just 2 games into this tenure, but things look absolutely fantastic so far. Just remember that things began great for the DJ Durkin era, and Randy Edsall will always have that Labor Day night win over Miami, where everything is like, oh my goodness, this program's awesome. So long way to go, but you have to be, one is very pleased with what is seen thus far.
Well, the Syracuse win was nice, right? There's a ranked team that comes in, nobody's expecting much. This is sort of the week that you expected to hear from me, right, Dave? I mean, there's been an awakening in College Park, and we'll see how long it lasts, and obviously the Temple game. Look, the Penn State game serves as, and I know you're old, well, you're not old enough to remember this because you grew up in New Hampshire, but there was a Penn State-Maryland game back in the Boomer era, back in 1983, 84, 85, in that era, where when Penn State came in here, they would beat the Terps 70-7 every year, and Boomer Esiason's around, and you wind up playing that kind of a game that, a generation later, you sort of remember that kind of a game. Friday night game against Penn State, they'll have a lot to prove if they can pull this game off this week. There'll be a lot of hype for this the next couple of weeks. For the first time in a long time for a Maryland football game.
And the thing is, more importantly, they have to beat Temple. Last year, they beat Texas, and then they lost to Temple at home. I think there was another really bad loss in 2011 at home to Temple. It was the end of the Danny O'Brien era. For whatever reason, I'm going to ask Coach Mike Loxley at his weekly press conference, later. But what is it about Temple that makes them such a tough out for this program? Because regardless of how good or how bad either team is, Temple has played the Terps very tough over the years, so you can't overlook the Owls. Maryland goes on the road this week. Another thing about Penn State, there was a stretch in the 80s where, yes, you had Boomer, you had Frank Reich. You also had some very good Maryland teams under Bobby Ross, teams that won the ACC, teams that were nationally ranked, and they would come up against Penn State, who won 2 national championships, 82 and 86. They also went unbeaten in the regular season in 85. And Maryland would give them absolutely everything, and somehow the Nittany Lions would squeak out a 17-15 win or a 24-20 win. And it was so the Maryland faithful. It was such a frustrating time because they would lose a game to Penn State that they
Well, I
could
mean,
easily have won, and then they lose another game to like a Michigan, and instead of going 10-1 with a shot at the national championship, they go 8-3 and they'd play in the Aloha Bowl.
But or the Sun Bowl, or the Blue Bonnet Bowl. I remember all those.
They beat Washington in the Aloha Bowl, and it's like, great, we could have gone 11-1.
Well, and I remember that era, right? I remember that little engine. I remember those Florida States. I remember Florida State won in the ACC, Miami. You know what I mean? These seminal games that are now 35 years old. I go back to Claiborne, right? So when it comes to Penn State was always the outlier, and we were always going to meet them at the border, up in Hereford, and have a slobber knocker somewhere, and they were always John Capoletti, and they were always just Richie Anderson. They were always better, right? They were always Joe Pa, right? And then you get rid of them, and you sail that thing off. And the one thing about coming back to the Big Ten, certainly on the basketball side, there wasn't much to hold your hat to other than Indiana or whatever you would want to talk about in a Michigan State was just becoming royalty under Izzo. But
hey, that Rutgers rivalry, oh my.
But the Penn State game, right, that's the thing we were getting back.
Right.
A Penn State football game that everyone here wanted to be a rivalry all of my childhood. But to your point, it never was much of one.
And the whole thing, too, is the Penn State attitude is, I think on their media guide last year or the year before, they dubbed themselves as unrivaled because they don't have a rival. They never, even though Pitt was their rival for the longest time, and they met in some great Thanksgiving week games over the years, they always thought, okay, we're a national program. We don't have a rival per se. And the local schools from Temple to Rutgers to Maryland to even Syracuse, if you're looking at Eastern Independence or West Virginia's, they would always gauge their season on how they fared against Penn State. But Penn State always viewed themselves as a little bit above the rest of the crew. And since they've joined the Big Ten, it's been a little bit of a rude awakening over the years. They look good again this year. And I think the Friday night game in College Park, they're shutting down campus for half the day. If Maryland is unbeaten entering that, if Penn State is able to beat Pitt this week and going unbeaten, it's going to be a heck of a game. It's going to be a heck of an experience. And to your point, this is why Maryland joined the Big Ten, because there's going to be some excitement as opposed to playing Wake Forest.
Dave Preston has been my friend for a long time. He's at WTOP.com. He's Dav Presto out on Twitter with his unique sense of style and humor, and you got to have a sense of humor to be a Nationals fan, right? I'll throw this over to you. The Redskins, boy, oh boy, at least we have the Ravens. We haven't had much of a baseball season here at all. We haven't had a baseball season at all to talk about. And I know you're a hockey guy like I am. They're actually like skating this week, right? Like we're there already into the fall, but the Redskins have gone nappy nap, and it's sort of up to the Nationals around there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, what's amazing is how the seasons just converge this month and how much earlier Wizards and Capitals seasons have become over the last 5 to 10 years. It feels like there are really no dead months on WordPress. Preston's Perspective is my non-WTOP blog. You can obviously catch my stuff on WTOP.com. I do weekly picks where I choose which wines and cheeses Kippy and Buffy will be having at the University of Virginia tailgate. Also do a college football corner recap of the weekend that was. But then on WordPress, I'll do everything. I did a piece on Beverly Hills 90210, 5 episodes to watch, and 5 tired tropes from why are they always hanging out at the Walsh household?
Hey, are you going to a Brady Bunch thing here now that we have a Brady reunion? I mean, 5 favorite Brady episodes?
I'm kind
of... The Joe Namath one's got to be in there, right, for sure.
Oh, I would think so, yeah. We were actually talking about the best, TV, the best athletes visiting TV shows. And obviously, Joe Namath visited the Brady Bunch. I want to say was Bubba Smith in an episode?
Bubba Smith, no, actually it was the Dodgers first baseman at the time. Who was it?
Parker.
Wes Parker
was
right.
Meeting the teacher, yeah. But my favorite remains the Cheers episode where the crew pantsed Wade Boggs.
I like that.
And they're like, "Oh, you're really Wade Boggs," and they took it. Yeah, it was a funny,
I remember when Dick Butkus was on the $6 Million Man. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
Andre the Giant was also. You did some cameos. Andre the Giant, when he cameos on your show, you win, right?
He could do anything. It's a shame he never got on the Love Boat. I would have watched.
Unless
it's
Charlie's
Reggie
Angels.
Jackson was awesome on the Love Boat as Isaac's friend, Reggie Jackson, who wanted everyone. It was a lot.
Reggie was on the Love Boat.
Yes, he was.
He was only full of hate.
He played himself.
Yeah, well,
as only he could.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame that Ricky Henderson never got on the Love Boat, because Ricky would have been talking about Ricky for the entire 3 days of the cruise in every port.
Ricky would have stolen everything on the boat.
Ricky would have liked it. Ricky would have had some fun. Ricky would have referred to himself in the third and in the fourth person multiple times.
Reggie Jackson once cussed me out when I was 17 in the locker room at Memorial Stadium. I wrote a chapter about that in my Free the Birds book back in 2006. Good. Yeah, Ted Patterson was involved. Reggie Jackson was involved. He popped out on a high fastball from Don Ossie on a Saturday afternoon game of the week, Memorial Stadium in the summer 1986. It was actually the day I met Peter Schmuck. Anybody see Schmuck, let him know that was a momentous day in my life. But Reggie Jackson cussed me out, and I was 17, and it was lovely. Dave Preston here. He is Dave Presto out on Twitter and WTOP. Anything you want to say about the Nationals? I mean,
yes.
They're going to play baseball next month, I think, right?
Culture world.
They're in this, right?
What's interesting about the Nationals, they have 20 games remaining in the regular season. 17 are against winning clubs. The next 9 are against teams that currently lead their division. They've got 3-game series against the Twins, 3-game series against the Braves, 3-game series against the Cardinals. They also play 5 games against Philadelphia the final week of the season over a 4-day stretch. So it's very conceivable that this team misses the playoffs. The key for them is you got to try to grind out and win some of these series, but you cannot afford to get swept. They almost got swept by Atlanta. Thankfully, a great effort by Max Scherzer on Sunday helped to turn the tide there. They almost got swept by the Mets. Thankfully, the Mets bullpen is what it is, what we thought it was, and what it always will be. They were able to win in thrilling fashion. But the way that things are going right now, I think Arizona has a very soft schedule going down the stretch. The Cubs have a decent schedule where they can pick up some ground, but
it's a good fight, right? I mean, if you're a baseball fan, I joked 15 years ago about being a Washington Nationals fan because I'm a Caps fan and the Orioles treat me like garbage. Well, the Nationals treated me not more like garbage, but similarly like garbage. When I was on my baseball tour, my wife almost died. Between the 2 times she almost died, and we swabbed people. The Nationals were the worst human beings this side of the Cubs or the Yankees. And, I had 18 teams treat me pretty well. I tend to, at this point, because I'm 50 years old and I'm a grown-up, my wife's almost died twice, and my last name's Aparicio, I root for the teams that treated me and my wife well when I went to 30 baseball ballparks in 30 days, something that only 5 human beings have ever done in the history of Major League Baseball. So, so I dedicated myself to doing that, and when the Nationals treated me like garbage, I decided that I was going to treat them like garbage. So I wish Max Scherzer were my pitcher. I wish the Orioles weren't such turds and the Angelos family weren't so horrible. But I have not given a whole lot of time to baseball this year, and I'm not going to apologize for that, right? But there is something about this National League race that, and I know no one likes baseball around here anymore because I live in the middle of it. But if you loved baseball, boy, this is a pretty good little catfight going on down to the wire, I think, right?
It's going to be thrilling, and I think that both wildcard spots very well could be up for grabs. Not just the final week of the season, Nestor, but the final weekend. Nationals have Cleveland. The Indians are potentially playing for a playoff berth as well. So things could go down to the wire. I wouldn't be surprised to see there be a play-in game for the second wildcard spot to have the play-in to get into the divisional series. So you want to have meaningful games the final month of the season, no matter what sport, whether it's baseball, basketball, hockey, football. And right now the Nationals are giving their fans that. And, hopefully they sign Anthony Rendon in the offseason. He's having a career year. Right now Rendon is having the walk year that Bryce Harper wanted to have last season. And Rendon is having better offensive numbers. Granted, there's offensive inflation this year. You look around the league, so many guys are hitting 30 home runs that have no business doing so, but he's having a great offensive season while playing a premier defensive position, and he's going to be paid like it in the offseason, whether it's by the Nats or somebody else. That'll be the big mystery.
Well, for all the teams tanking, and we have the Tank Bowl this weekend with the Orioles and the Tigers around here, figuring if they let the Tigers sweep them, then we'll have a race around here for 2 weeks to see who gets the number 1 pick. We're all, petting our new toy in Adley Rutschman, and we're all watching what's going on in Frederick and Delmarva and, Aberdeen and all this other stuff. But meanwhile, 3 weeks from now, they're going to play baseball in October. Yankees, Astros, Tampa's going to be involved. Minnesota's going to be involved. Cleveland, Oakland, there's a race going on. The Red Sox are trying to figure out what they're going to do to retool. But once we get these teams into October, we're playing wild card games and playing 3 out of 5s and 4 out of 7s and all that. There are going to be some pretty good baseball teams next month if you love baseball. And for me, I've given no time to baseball at all this year. October, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to be in Hawaii during the World Series. So that'll make for interesting afternoons for me, right? I mean, give me a little sunset baseball, right?
Hey, say hi to Magnum for me.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, Tom Selleck. Yes, so the guy in the Tiger
like
hat.
That.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it again, as you mentioned, it should be an exciting postseason, and that's what baseball wants and enjoys, having those nip and tuck, 3 and 5 game, or 5 and 7 game series. And we should get that. It's gonna be tough to beat the Yankees. Going to be tough to beat the Dodgers. But then again, what's interesting about baseball is that you go from running a marathon of 162 games to running a sprint. And if you've ever ran track in your life, they take 2 different skill sets on the track. They take 2 different skill sets in baseball, winning a 5 to 7 game series as opposed to just being the best team over 162.
Well, Dave, the analytics part of this has changed the game so dramatically for positioning, for all aspects, for how to be a fan. And I don't know that I'm a 50-year-old fan that hasn't gone along with it. You know what I mean? I'm not a guy reading all the nerd Bill James charts and trying to enjoy baseball in that way. I want my box scores back. I want a pen. My wife keeps scoring her shoe. And I want a team that's represented. I want all of that. But the postseason specifically, when I dive in for the first time in 4 months to watch baseball 2 or 3 times a day, the way it's managed, the way it's played, it is a different game in October from how pitching's managed to how lineups are structured. All of it, right? And I don't know that I love it or enjoy it. I love the 1 game knockout. I mean, that's fun and whatever, but it is managed so differently that it's almost not like baseball. And I would say that the analytics part of this is almost not like baseball anymore either, right?
Right. I mean, you see, because I think a lot of it is the postseason that we grew up with watching, where you saw pitchers go, 7, 8 innings, more often than not. Now you see quicker hooks, you see higher pitch counts, you see guys get, so the way that Joe Madden manages the Cubs during the Nats playoff series a couple of years ago is just, you may as well, he's the starter, but he may as well technically be called the opener. So it's the world that we live in nowadays, and you got to embrace it. But I definitely miss the days when a Ron Guidry or Jim Palmer would go 7, 8 innings, and maybe you might see another guy come out of the pen.
Well, you still got Max Scherzer, so you'll see that in a couple of weeks if you get there. Dave Preston's dad, Presto, out on Twitter and at WTOP down in the capital of what used to be the free world down there. We'll see how this turns out over the next 12 months or so. Hey, man, always a pleasure. Hope to bump into you somewhere down in the district. REO Speedwagon and Tesla might get me down to the Warner Theater sometime soon, and that could mean some sushi at the Hamilton for you and I.
Hey, you know what? Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues comes to the Birchmere October 24th. So a little Knights in White Satin.
Oh, well, we share the same birthday. Justin Hayward was born on October the 14th, and the one time I interviewed him 30 years ago, I brought that up. So we are Libra soulmates on October the 14th. Also shared by Harry Anderson, the dearly departed judge of Night Court. Yes.
Knights in White Satin, he actually did write about bed sheets. Told me that in an interview a few years ago.
I got to get him back on the program. Moody Blues.
Yeah.
Let's see. In your wildest dreams. There you go. All right?
Yep, wildest dreams.
See you soon, Dave.
Take care.
Dad Presto. He can be found with Kippy and Buffy down there at Scott Stadium in Charlottesville. But usually, now that the Terps are on the bandwagon and winning, you'll see him at Byrd Stadium at the University of College Park at Maryland. Something like that. The BuyAToyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Luke is out in Owings Mills all week long, bringing you full coverage on the Lee Tessier team hotline, and everything we do that's there for you is available at WNST.net. Our morning newspaper ships digitally each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. $5 down, $10 a month gets you in the best shape of your life. You're going to need it because, Thanksgiving's coming. I'm going to be drinking eggnog eating pumpkin pie and doing crazy stuff around here, Halloween candy. So we got to get it going. Get in shape. It's Planet Fitness. They've been taking great care of us in the Brick family. Big thanks to them. Any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. It is the SSV on WNST. I am Nestor. I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. We're doing Baltimore Positive on Thursday. We're going to be out in Catonsville with Sarah Heminger of Thread. Incredible story. Can't wait to tell it. That's going to be at Jennings on Thursday. Friday, we're back for the Breakfast at State Fair. I'll probably be having an Eggs Benedict, Chesapeake style, a little crab. That's Friday morning with Ben Jealous. And then next Thursday, crab cakes with our City Council President, Brandon Scott. Will be down at Fadley's Seafood Market in Lexington Market. World famous. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.